think I look at stuff differently. I think I'm a lot more analytical about things when if I'm like, oh, I like something, I think it's more like, but what makes it interesting to me and why?
I think that architecture school has given me a medium through which to channel sort of these things that I'm talking about like certain ways of seeing the world.
I mean, I definitely think it's inflamed a lot within design itself. The kind of design methodology process of like creating something, being able to communicate it, and it almost becomes like your child in a way.
Well, like I said, architecture school has definitely provided me with an interest in sustainability and looking for a way to add sort of a technical math problem to a larger subjective challenge or project.
This kid was like sharing his umbrella with me as I was walking, and all I can think of was some of the spatial implications of that umbrella. And I hate it, but it has affected me.
I'm like a very orderly person, and I think architecture school has, definitely encouraged that kind of like things lining up.
I think I've learned a lot about space in general in architecture school, and that has made me appreciate both graphics, so just like visual stuff, and kind of the physical world, a lot more from everything from like just walking around a city to like walking around like the woods or like the beach.
From architecture, I feel like the visual presentation of projects is important, and around sophomore year, I feel like a lot of us started to discover our own stylistic approach. And from that, I realized how that was the aspect of architecture that I was most interested and passionate about.
I was kind of interested in photography before architecture school, and I think now I'm more interested in it, but what I'm actually photographing has changed a bit, and I'm like more interested in like photographing light and space.
I actually started taking kind of like CSS, more web graphics oriented classes, which I struggled with, but also it was an eye-opener for this other realm of design.
My desire to actually build things has developed into a minor here, and allowed me to like design and build a couple fashion lines that I don't think I would have had the confidence or skills to do.
I always wanted to like be making stuff and like putting stuff together, and like just how things come together was really exciting for me. And I think architecture school really like helped me develop those interests in a few different ways and like a few different kind of processes.
I've also sort of like being in school been able to sort of more focus those interests, because I think like before all of this, like I had an idea that I might be interested in like, I don't know, buildings or something like that, but now it's like I know like the sort of scale, like I'm very interested in geography and sort of like a large scale, but also like an intimate scale of like moving through that space.
So when I first started, 100%, I was like, I'm gonna be an architect, blah, blah, blah. I think, from 60 people down to like 30 something that we have right now, and then I'm a BA, so.
It's interesting because when I first got into architecture school, I was not that into architecture. So I got really into architecture, I think before third year.
This made me realize kind of like what I want to pursue in general. I was fortunate enough to have a summer internship last summer for architecture, and it's just like seeing the progress of like working with leadership positions and kind of like working with them. I feel like that's not really where I want to go, so that's why I'm taking a direction with the army, and then we'll see where that leads me. But I still want to incorporate some kind of building, some kind of like drafting things, software stuff, but I don't know, so we'll see.
That time I was really into the design part of architecture, but now I feel like it's really I'm more into what architecture can do to people, rather than just designing like interesting stuff.
How it's not just art plus math equals buildings. There are systems involved, there are people involved, there are new emerging technologies. So I've gotten really excited about not just copying and pasting my old interest into a building, but seeing how the building itself can really tease out things that you were excited about before, but now you see it in a different light?
If I had like a wildest dream, I would have liked to pursue kind of like composing. I think that's something that has been like an interest that's very deep within me.
Weirdly enough, I think going to architecture school here, I've grown to be more interested in other stuff outside of the architecture school, and I think that was definitely a benefit for me.
The way that it's influenced, again, like another wild dream, is that like I'm really interested in kind of like set or like exhibition design, even though like I might not actually be like working on anything on the side for it, but like if I could, I would like to take like, I guess, things that I've learned here and like apply them to like doing sets and stuff for like music videos.
The stuff that I've done outside of architecture within CMU in general has helped me expand out of architecture, and by doing that, I can then use those skills within architecture itself.
I don't know. I think I never found a relationship between the school of architecture and my passion and interest.
Not much.
Architecture? Or the school? The way the school has taught me architecture?
I feel like architecture school in general can be really, really stressful and like involve a somewhat toxic stress culture.
That feels like you're putting a medium to like what my passions and what I don't ask me what my passions are.
So I feel like the biggest influence architecture school has had on my passions and interests is like finding stuff to focus on that's outside of this environment, and like finding things that are just like forms of stress relief from like constant work and deadlines and stuff like that.
In other areas, I would say that kind of that intensity for me personally doesn't have to be universal, but it's kind of cinched off a lot of my other interests that I used to do creatively before I came here, like music. I was a passionate musician, I still am, but I really haven't focused on music or art or philosophy or these other interests I have that are also creatively minded through just the way I've approached architecture at school here.
Architecture school has made me look at everything in my life more critically, and it has caused me to make hard decisions about a lot of my passions and interests. I stopped playing soccer because, well, not 100% because of architecture school, but it was a factor. A lot of the things that I loved to do before architecture school, I've stopped doing, and now I've found new things that I enjoy, like going to the gym and working out and that type of thing. But I'm very excited after architecture school because I want to fall in love again with my old passions and interests of playing soccer and dancing. And I hope I get the chance to do that because I think it's taken a lot of the love that I have for other things outside of school away and made me look at things a little bit more negatively than I probably should.
I would say architecture school has done none of that, and I'm not saying that as like a blanket statement because it's so easy to say, but rather what has done that is the realization that if you play the political game in school and you talk to the right people and you annoy them and you sort of, again, play the game, that's really sometimes the only way forward, which is kind of futile and unfortunate. But I think architecture school is very much, in some ways, about the real world in that you can't get anything done unless you know the right people. So I think architecture school in many ways taught that, but also didn't teach that, and the onus was on us to sort of just fuck with people. Can I say that? Mm-hmm. Fuck with people.
I think that architecture school has led me to be more passionate about the things that I am passionate about, and even less about the things that I'm not passionate about. So I would say it's just made me into an extremist.
It made me realize that I am much more naive than I always thought. And that all of my passions and interests are much less developed than I ever even thought. And so I feel like architecture school has kind of put me in my place to like fully recognize that I don't know a lot and there's a lot more, and everybody kind of has their own interest, and like everybody has this opportunity to learn, or everybody is an opportunity to learn something cool. So, yeah.
But it's also enabled me to explore other things and to explore some of my hobbies that I've had more in depth, potentially as something that I could explore as a career option, from thinking about cars to building a buggy to going out on a ski trip and, you know, going to concerts that I normally wouldn't have. It's definitely provided me with, it's given me a focus for what I like and what I think is the fundamental root of what I want to do in the future, but also encouraged me to go out beyond that and see or explore the impact that I could have from school on the rest of the world.
I'm thankful for architecture school now because I'm able to look back and see that all of the hardships that I went through and all of the kind of turning points have brought me to where I am today. In the moment, it was definitely scary, not knowing if I was in a field that I loved, if I wanted to do what I was doing, or just all of the questions that come rushing to you. That happened to me, but pushing through it and just really looking at clarity at what I wanted to do and not being scared of failure or anything, that has gotten me to where I am today.